Hello and welcome everyone. This is Nitesh Mishra from Federation of Indian Export Organizations, popularly known as FIO, India's apex trade promotion organization. And you are listening to the Voice of Exports, India's first exclusive podcast for EXIM community. On this podcast, we bring top performers from the sector who not only inspire but also reinvigorate among you to become one of them.
Welcome to another episode of Voice of Exports, India's first audio podcast on exports, designed and started by FIO for its member exporters. Today we have in our program Ms. Kiran Grewal, who is the CEO of Garry and Son Organics Pvt Ltd, which produces Ayurvedic products of different types, including herbal capsules used for various purposes. Thank you for joining Ms. Grewal, our program on Voice of Exports.
Thank you for having me.
Very first question which I would like to ask you, Ms. Grewal, how has your company started? And tell us about the introduction of the company, the product and services into which you are.
Right. So Garry and Son Organics is basically a manufacturer and global supplier of Ayurvedic and herbal products. We have over 20 years of experience that is driving this. We are actually the manufacturing unit of an American company called Garry and Son USA Inc., which is based out of Reno, Nevada.
Okay.
Our journey began in US with a simple vision, which was to take ancient wisdom of Ayurveda and make it accessible and relevant to the American population. And we have been there for over, like I mentioned, almost 25 years. And so we brought our, company back to the roots. So currently we are working with organic and wild-crafted herbs. We make our own herbal oils. We capsulate herbal powders. So whether it's for herbal supplements, like I mentioned before, moringa, ashwagandha, safed muesli, for various different kind of health supplements, as well as formulations for female health, male health, for diabetes, blood pressure management, and various other ailments. So we also do high quality extracts that are, and also work with formulations which are around granulated teas for immunity and female health.
Okay. Talking about the challenges which you have come across, you are into herbal products and Ayurveda products. So who are the other countries and what kind of competition which do you get from those countries in terms of the products into which you are?
So we have, obviously, I think the most, in terms of competition, if you were to ask me, it's, within India, obviously, the companies, because we are purely in Ayurveda. The only challenge, obviously, we come across is the whole concept of acceptance of, pure products. So there's a barrier, obviously, in acceptability that we can, provide quality herbs and it's a the herb expected in the international.
To add to the question, Ms. Grewal, I just wanted to also add that you can also reply to me as with regard to the international market also.
So we've been actually, the thing is that we also have a food division. We
Okay.
also have a brand called Herbal, where we are giving ready-made canned food. So we are currently supplying this to the Middle East. And our Ayurvedic products are going to the US as well as UK market. So in terms of acceptability, there's a huge, obviously, relevance. We are supplying raw herbs as well as, end products. So the challenges have only been, in terms of the, the quality management of this, making sure that we are, we're testing constantly. See, we have our own labs in the factory before we start working on a product.
Okay.
So we have very stringent testing measures across. Plus, because we are a certified organic company, and plus we are an FDA approved factory. So we have a lot of auditing that goes on throughout the year. So I think we go into auditing for whether it's an NPOP, NOP certification, whether it's obviously for our ISO certification. So, we are constantly, upping our game so that we are able to provide the right certifications, and the quality management as is internationally required.
India has a prowess in organic and Ayurveda products. You may be knowing about it quite extensively. Why? Because you have already been into this business for a long time now. So, what kind of certification as with regard to, because it comes under food and food supplement, as a food supplement, it can be used as. So, what kind of
Mhm.
certification requirements do you have, and what kind of challenges do you face as with regard to those certification challenges in terms of exporting to developed countries like US, UK, EU, Australia, Japan, all these places?
The thing is that in terms of certifications, now every product that we are working with has to be certified. If, as a unit, if we are certified organic, one is obviously the product, the herb, which is the raw material that we procure, has to be organic. That is the
Okay.
journey. The ground that the herb grows in has to be organic. And then when it comes into the factory, the way the entire process, the way it's cleaned, the way it's processed, has to retain the organicness of the product, inclusive of the capsules that we work with. So there's an entire journey when it comes to organic certifications. And then obviously NOP and NPOP keeps upping the game. Every year, there are different upgrades that they come up with. So whether our label needs to be properly checked, and they're making sure that when they come in for an audit, that each and every compliance is essentially, met. So certifications also means that an example is Shilajit. Now, if I am to take Shilajit into the international market, we have to have it certified. There are very few labs which are approved internationally, which have an international acceptance. So we send our product in for certification. Once that is come, it's authenticated and that is shared. So there are very few international level approved certifying bodies
Okay.
and labs that enable us to share our reports, which are also then further scrutinized, obviously, by the buyers. The acceptability is then higher because it's NABH accredited, the different kind of certifications that we have. So measuring, like you said, for every material that goes out, heavy metals testing is one of the most essential ones that we have.
Yeah.
But other than that, every country has its own requirement, whether it's testing. So the measures that you have for US are completely different to what you would do for EU.
Okay.
You would have completely different documentation for the UAE market, and the Australian market has a completely different requirement. So, we need to be on our game all the time, making sure our documentations are right. They have different kind of tests that go in. So, normally buyers are very supportive. They understand the process.
Okay.
The challenge that I find mostly in India is there are very far and few labs, that are certified to be handling international level tests.
Okay. When you talk about your key learnings during your journey of exports, what advice would you like to give to companies similar to you or which are into similar products in which you are?
I think one of the most important ones I feel is quality, compliance, and consistency.
Okay.
The global market is open to Indian products, but we have to match international standards.
Okay.
So whether the documentation, certifications, and the authenticity, these are not optionals. We should
Okay.
be the foundation.
Okay.
They should be considered extremely important. And, we're investing so much in creating brands and we're investing so much in creating these products. But if you're looking at obviously positioning India as a strong, global market, then we need to definitely up our game and, focus on the quality that we are able to work with.
Okay. Now, talking about the current global trends, which are with respect to tariff wars, India's FTAs with other countries, then the BTAs happening, and the trade and global supply chain disruptions happening quite often, geopolitical tensions happening quite often. What kind of impact do you see on your product, especially Ayurveda and organic products?
Definitely, there has been some kind of an impact. I won't say it's phenomenally large, but global trade today is deeply interconnected and it's often unpredictable. So
Okay.
you have tariff wars, you have geopolitical tensions, and supply chain disruptions will definitely, it's going to affect every exporter. Like
Okay.
we had also quite a disruptive time when Operation Sindoor had happened
Mhm.
because we're also looking at procuring herbs, and our herbs come from anywhere in the world. They're
Okay.
not necessarily all India centric. So it definitely has an impact because it also affects the product at the end of the day. Costs go up. So it has meant it's better. It's just a question of obviously better planning. We'll have to diversify the markets that we're working in. We'll have to source sustainably. Building resilience in our supply chains is, I think, one of the most important ones. And India's FTAs and BTAs have opened opportunities, especially for natural and wellness products.
Okay.
But the exporters still have to stay very vigilant and very informed. I think a view is that challenges will continue to come, but Indian Ayurveda and natural products are very strongly positioned to withstand growth fluctuations because they're not just commodities, they're solutions for health. And, this is something which right now I feel with the pharma industry parallelly is growing.
Okay. Uh, so,
Yeah.
one question which now I would like to relate to FIO and FIO services. What
Mhm.
made you seek us out in terms of FIO services and to FIO?
The thing is, for any startup or anyone who is in this business, India is a huge market, and there is so much that is happening. There's so many different exporters. I mean, I come from Ludhiana.
Okay.
Ludhiana is a huge export market.
Yes.
So being part of a community was something which I felt was very essential.
Yeah.
And we were introduced to FIO through the industry peers who highlighted the organization's role in, supporting the Indian exporters. So
Okay.
as we have expanded, we have realized that, you need a partner who can help us navigate
Yeah.
the trade complexities, connect with new markets. So constantly, I'm always getting upgraded with what is happening, what are the opportunities, what are the different platforms that are opening up for the Indian market. So that's how, CEOs, I feel, a very relevant space for the Indian exporters today.
One very last question to end this conversation, Ms. Grewal. What would be your three important suggestions for the new budding exporters who would like to come to the field of exports and become a successful exporter?
I think, like I mentioned to you initially also, one is obviously do not compromise on quality.
Okay.
Second thing is be consistent in your product offerings, whatever it is. So again, it comes down to the same thing. Supply chain management should be priority at the beginning,
Okay.
so that your consistency is supported. Quality, consistency in delivery, and I think transparency. Transparency will take you, quite far. And obviously, yes, definitely, I think one of the ground rules for any business right now, and especially when it comes to exports, be on top of your documentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Grewal, for being so candid and very open in your approach in answering my question. Thank you for joining our podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Voice of Exports podcast by FIO aims to provide important information and views on foreign trade, especially on exports, which will help both Indian exporters and importers. Any statements made by an exporter, importer, or an importing company in this podcast as guests reflect the views and opinions of that individual or the company. This podcast does not constitute an endorsement by the FIO of the individual or the company, his or her or its employer or affiliated entity. The specific information or views provided, resources mentioned, or products or services endorsed or offered by that individual or the company, his or her or its employer or affiliated entity. FIO assumes no responsibility for the accuracy, completeness, or timelines of the information provided by the guest or the company in this podcast, or for the decisions made and reliance on any information provided by the guest or the company in this podcast. We thank you for listening to this episode of Voice of Exports podcast service brought to you by the FIO. For more information on how you can start exporting, please visit our website www.fio.org.